old glass photographs from the early 1900s. This one's 1912, 1913. It's got some notable names in it. John Yeoman's Morris Cook, which was Percy Cook's brother. Percy Cook is in this. Most of them are unidentified that far back. Move on to the teens, 1916, 1917. Pretty much the entire class is identified in this photograph. It's got my grandmother and a few other people in it. We go on to the 1915, 16, 17, the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. This is still when the school building was only 2 rooms. They hadn't added the 3rd room on yet. Again, this is a class unknown. We know some of the names, but I don't know the year. So if anybody knows when Eugene Thompson and Ed Lindholm were in school, get a year on it, I'd appreciate it. 1919, this is the lower class, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades. There were 2 rooms again, so it was this group, and then the lower picture, next picture will be the higher grades. Okay, the bottom one is the 1919 upper class, or higher grades, the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. We're looking at now one of Howard Stanley's early school buses. He used to transport the students to school. I believe it was a 1933 bus, so it was probably taken in the middle 30s. And we go to the late 1920s. This is a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade class. This is just before the next year they would have completed the 3rd room and broken it up into 3 pieces. This is the last 8th grade class to graduate from the 2-room/3-room schoolhouse. It's got my father, Edward Yeomans, in it, and Doris Chamberlain, who was still the principal of the school when I went to the new school. This is the 5th, 6th, and 7th grade classes from the new brick school. It's the beginnings of what today is our current elementary school. In 1962, Andover had 7 sets of twins, many of which are still located in the area. This is the quote 2-room/3-room schoolhouse after the 3rd room had been added, taken very shortly before it was closed down. That was taken for the bicentennial of the Ecclesiastical Society in the town in 1947. This photograph is the Northwest School District when there were 1-room schoolhouses. The town of Andover until 1888 was divided into 4 school districts, each having a 1-room schoolhouse. That was the one down, it was located on Burnett Brook and Route 6, directly across from the Burnett Brook farmhouse. At this point in time, it had been abandoned and was just sitting in the middle of the Arthur Savage's farm field, as attested by the sheep. Later on, it was moved back toward the railroad, moored down Burnett Brook Road, and is the only 1-room schoolhouse building still remaining in town. All right, this one is the Southeast District Schoolhouse. It sat right at the bottom of Lake Road, where it intersected with Merritt Valley Road before it went through to Route 6. Now that Lake Road goes through to Route 6, it probably would have taken the tail end of this building off where it went through. It was there up until the 1970s, at which time it was dismantled and taken off to a place like Sturbridge Village. Don't know which place it was taken to. If anybody knows, let me know. This is the conference house at the church. It served as the school building for the town from 1888 until the 1903 school was completed. Initially, this took the upper grades, while a room in the back of Post Store at the center took the lower grades. Eventually, the town population, or school population, dropped to the point where all of the children were able to go to this school. This is the design for the new 4-room brick schoolhouse that was going to replace the 1903 2-room/3-room school. As designed, obviously the auditorium was never built, but the rest of the building was pretty much constructed as designed. This is the 4-room schoolhouse under construction. Again, the beginnings of what is our elementary school today. This is opening day of the 1948 schoolhouse. Again, 4-room brick school. built to replace the 1903 wooden school down at the center. Again, it still serves as the core of the elementary school. This is one of the early additions to the existing elementary school done in 1966. Included a library, the cafeteria, and most of the extension off to the left of the main building.
This was a picture taken by a Hartford Courant reporter, Donald Smith. The boy on the left is Donald Smith's son, whose name is also Donald Smith. The girl in the middle escapes me. Is that Marguerite Mercier, or is it, do you know who it is?
I've heard the name, but I don't know.
I did know, but I don't remember. And the person on the right is myself, Peter Yeomans. It was the last day of school, and Mr. Smith just thought it would be a good picture to put in the Hartford Courant.
This is a picture of a class in front of the conference house when it was being used as a schoolhouse for the town in 1897.
Thank you, Scott, curator of the Andover Museum, for your presentation.
Lucille Palmer Munzel.
Yes.
John Phelps. Irving Stanley. Louise Palmer Walton. Anne Hathaway Whitman. Ed Yeomans. And Peter Yeomans. Also like to thank not only Dottie for doing the video, but also Irv Stanley's wife, Connie, who you probably haven't met because she's been in the kitchen most of the time. And she was responsible for all the different things except I do want to mention the cake. A local person makes it. We gave her a photo of the school, and I hope you all got a chance to look at it because I got some pictures because she does a great job. Very tasty. And it tasted good too. Scott. Those of you who went to the museum this morning met Scott Yeomans. Where is he? Scott, you're going to come say a couple words. Where is he?
You're on.
Yeah.
Cue Scott.
Hello all, I am currently serving as the town historian, and it's been a lifelong interest of mine anyways, kind of how I led to it, and I'm very interested in gathering any information I can from y'all. I see a lot of photographs and albums and things here that I'm not stealing them, I'm running into the back trying to scan as much as I can before you take them and go away with them. But certainly if there's anything else that anyone has related to the town in any way, shape, or form, especially your childhood, the 30s, 40s seems to be a big hole in a lot of the information I have. If you could get it to me or somehow communicate with me, I'd appreciate it. My email address and my historical website are both accessible from the town's website as well as my own. You can Google it, do my name, Andover History, any of those things, my sites will come up. Again, I just appreciate gathering as much as I can from anybody.
Are you going to go back to the museum to open it afterwards? Is anyone interested in stopping at the museum on the way home?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Can you do that, Scott?
Give me a time. I wasn't planning on it, but my day's for you, so whatever the time you want to go down there, we can go down there.
Right after the group picture. Scott is going to take a group picture of the Red School attendees. He's going to take a picture of us, and then he said he would go back to the museum. And again, those of you who have not been down there, it's a real treat. And I think it's cooler there from what I heard about the people who were there this morning than it is here.
Can I add one thing? Scott, routinely, if you do come up with pictures or things that are memorabilia that are dear to you, he'll borrow them and copy them and he'll get them back to you. My sister Jean and I have given him quite a few things to him that way. And, so don't feel like they're going to be gone. He'll just borrow them. And it's important to Andover history.
Also, Ed, they're over here somewhere. I'll when somebody else is speaking, I'll go get them. Has some information sheets he'd like you to fill out and leave. You can just leave them on top of the copy or mail them to him. You have his address if you still have the invitations that you got. If not, you can mail them to everybody on the committee. Probably just us in Andover would get them here, but anybody can get hold of Ed or any of us as far as getting his mailing address. But he'd like you to do it today. They're over here. Also, Scott has, since we all looked here, brought some additional photos up. And if you're interested in purchasing any of them, you can do so. And I believe they're $15 a piece. If you see anything there that you'd like, see Scott. Now, your turn comes.
You're gonna tell a story first.
All right. What I'd like you to do is to tell us, first of all, your name and your class. I was the class of 1950. What you've been doing since you left the Andover Little Red Schoolhouse. You can, if you, like some of us graduated from the big old Andover, new Andover Elementary School from whatever time you got out of the 8th grade, so to speak. And including what you did education-wise, what you did vocational-wise, and anything else you'd like to share about what you've been doing since you left here. Also, we'd like to have you share a memory of the old school. My memory, and those of you who know me well enough, can guess it was Bessie, the horse. The outhouses, of course, I'll never forget. My kids don't believe it. I wish they were still there. And the other thing that I think of most frequently are the school lunches, including the prune whip that made us all sick. Because remember, they used to make us eat the lunches? But anyhow, most of all, though, I remember the friends that I made when I was in elementary school. My education served me well here, but the friends that I made there, many of them I still have. There's a group of us who get together every summer, ranges anywhere between 6 and 10, and we inevitably say, gee, we were lucky to have grown up in Andover and gone to school together. My turn. Graduated, obviously, from Windham High School, like everybody else did who stayed in this area. Went to UConn, undergraduate UConn Law School, had a private practice of law in Rockville for about 24 years until I went to the Attorney General's office. I was there for 2 years when the federal government decided it was time to have people supporting their children. So I became one of the first family support magistrates, which is part of the judicial system, retired from there in January, and I use the word loosely because I'm still working there 3 days a week at a minimum. So that's what I've been doing, and I mentioned Bessie. I also breed and race thoroughbreds, and that's what I've been doing for the last 60 years. Richard. Oh, and we're going to have a minute limit. I overdid my minute, so.
Okay, graduated from Andover Elementary, 1953, I believe.
Could you stand, because that doesn't amplify.
All right, graduated from Andover in 1953. Windham High School, finished that 4 years later, went on to Maine Maritime Academy, and graduated in 1960 from Maine Maritime Academy, went to sea shortly after that, married my honey from Long Hill Road, Becky, and then after a couple more years I came ashore and ultimately took a job in the Manchester Fire Department, sort of a try it out, see how it was, and ended up staying 32 years. Retired in 97. I now live in Harpswell, Maine, and I've been driving a school bus and stuff like that, and that's what I do.
Good memory.
My memory of Andover, probably losing my marbles in a game down behind the outhouse. Something like that. I took up gambling a little bit, but I got to start here, so that's it.
Sandra Phelps Zuckery. And I was a member of the last class to enter the Red Schoolhouse in the class of 1955. And since then, which my father had graduated from many years ago before. And since then, I went on to Wyndham High School, but then was in the second graduating class of Ram High School. And then went to Hartford Hospital School of Nursing and married and started raising a family. Have 4 children, 3 grandchildren. Have done a lot of kind of arts things. Rather than being in the hospital, I found I enjoyed being at home and found many, many, many other things to do and do stenciling and toll work and different things like that. I'm married to my husband for 47 years, and he had been an executive at Raytheon Corporation, and a few years ago was moved to Tennessee to run a program there, and after about 5 years decided that big business was enough and went over to the local East Tennessee State University and applied for a job and is now happily a professor who doesn't intend to retire until they drag him out of the classroom. We left Andover 40 years ago, but you know, the memories and the friends and the heart of Andover is still with me wherever I go. And I think I have one memory that actually predates first grade that I'd like to share, and I have to give great credit and very big thanks to the class of 1954, because when I was growing up, until I was 11, I lived in the house across the street from the school, and Bessie was our horse. And I had no siblings at that point up until I was about 5 years old, and I just looked out the window and could see all those children having a wonderful time across the road, and I couldn't wait to go to school. So the year before I was scheduled to go to school, my mother allowed me to pack a lunch and come across the street and sit on the culvert and have lunch and visit with the first grade or whoever deemed that they would allow me to join their group. And I'm very thankful to that group because I felt like I had a little extra year of school and had a good start and had friends when I started first grade. So thank you. Richard's wife was in our graduating class, but she was out of town during the Red Schoolhouse days. So
Joined up later, so. My name is Lorraine Denyer Peridot, and I attended school here in 1946. 47, I would have graduated in 1950, but we moved back to the Hartford area. I was living with an aunt and uncle in town. Moved back to Hartford, graduated from Hartford High in 1954. Promptly got married, had 4 children. I now have 6 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild. My daughter is with me today. Only fond memories of Andover. I think I cried a long time because I had to go back to the Hartford area. Love it out here. Again, lived with an aunt and uncle on Shoddy Mill Road, actually. Now live in Farmington, been in the same house for 49 years, and life is good. And I'm glad to be here, and I know a lot of effort went into this gathering. I'm sorry I don't know everyone, but those of you with whom I've had a discussion, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Maren Taylor Allen, and I graduated from we were in the first graduating class from the new elementary school. I have a lot of nice memories of the little red schoolhouse. One of the memories that stays in my mind is the fact that during World War II, when there was an air raid practice, we all marched up the road to where we lived on Hebron Road and went into the foundation of the old colonial, which had burned down, and we practiced what we would do if we got bombed, which is not necessarily a happy memory, but it was something that was a big part of our lives, I think. I went on to Wyndham High School, as the rest of us did, and then I went to UConn. And from there, I graduated and taught family studies. In those days, it was called home ec. And finally, when I got through teaching after, how many years, 37 years or so, I took off 10 years in the middle to have a daughter. And I married Bill, by the way, before that.
Before you had the daughter.
Yes.
That's good.
Anyway, I wound up in Danbury High School and taught there, and finally was, aside from teaching cooking and sewing, I was allowed to teach family studies and to learn about also doing social psychology. And I was lucky I was in a school that had 152 ethnic backgrounds, and we sat and we talked about the different lifestyles and so forth, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. But if I hadn't had a mom and that said, one time somebody used the word nigger, and she said, Marin, you may say shit if you have to, but nigger is a hate word. Do not say it. And I thought that's a good lesson, and I took it with me to tell my kids in my classes. And I loved it here. I loved the town. And so that's it.
Ted, you're gonna have to come a little closer.
Okay.
Okay, because the microphone goes,
Okay.
you're gonna have to face people. 'cause
Okay. My name is Ted Williams. I never went to the Little Red Schoolhouse. I moved to Andover when I was in the 7th grade and was one of the first students at the, quote, new school. And I was in the class of 1950. Thanks, Catherine. I never went to Wyndham High School. I moved from Andover, so I was only here for 2 years, both years at the, quote, new school. And then I moved to Hartford and graduated from Hartford Public High School. And then I went to the University of Connecticut, and from there I went to Michigan State University, College of Veterinary Medicine, became a veterinarian, and moved back to Connecticut, and I practiced in Manchester, Connecticut, on Spencer Street. This isn't a plug because I don't own the practice anymore. I sold it in '89, and Cheryl and I were married in '84. My lovely wife, who is standing by the door there, and I have a 20-year-old daughter who is a sophomore at Simmons College in Boston, and we live in Lebanon on Route 207. So we've moved back to this part of the state, and I just have great memories. It was only 2 years in the town of Andover, but I just have great memories of those 2 years, and Mrs. Chamberlain and all of the classmates. I guess there were 10 of us in the class. Catherine and I used to spend our off time riding horses together. She had a horse and I had a horse, and I used to ride down Route 6, and then we'd go horseback riding. That's how we passed our time away. I can't tell you how happy I am to be here and see all of these folks, some people I've never met before, and many of them certainly ring a bell. And it's been a great pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Hi, y'all. Louise LeMay, 53. I don't remember too much about the past. I remember going there, having a good time. I left here probably 35, 40 years ago. I've lived in Florida ever since. I come back and forth. It was very, very nice seeing people that once I see the name, I remember. But I was really enjoyed today. And I want to thank everybody that worked so hard.
Hi, I'm Lucille Lemaire Carta, C-A-R-T-A. Most people want to make it an E-R. I graduated in '51 from the Little Red Schoolhouse. I went on to marry at 16, had 4 children, 10 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild. I graduated from Portland High School a year before my kids were graduating. My 2 oldest ones graduated when they were junior and senior, so I wanted to beat them. So I took night courses and went through the whole thing, though. I didn't take a GED or anything. Then I went on to, when my kids were old enough to school, I went on to work for the state of Connecticut. I got 17 years credit there. Then retired from there, went to Florida, lived 10 years, and came back about 6 years ago. And I live in Middletown, Connecticut now. And I'm retired. I do a lot of church work and other things like that, and just kind of enjoy life. But that's about it. It was nice being here today, and I thank everyone. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Dodie Chadwick Swanson, and I didn't graduate from the Little Red Schoolhouse because we were shipped off to Willimantic for our 8th grade. The school we had outgrown the Little Red Schoolhouse, and so we completed our 8th grade class or year at the Natchog School in Willimantic. But that would have been 47 when they sent us to Willimantic. I was a recipient of the first scholarship given by the Andover PTO. I attended Eastern Connecticut College and became a teacher, and I taught for about 25 years. And during that time, I had the opportunity to teach overseas for the Air Force. 1 year was in Denmark, and another year I spent in England. And while I was there, I did a lot of traveling in Europe, so I would never exchange those 2 years for anything. Right now, my husband and I live in Glastonbury, and we've lived there since we've been married, and we intend to stay there until they carry us out. One of my memories of the Little Red Schoolhouse was Irene Lathrop and myself dancing every rainy day during recess. We would dance the polka, I think it was, usually. And that's all I have to say. Today was fun.
John, we're going to have Don have to leave, so he's next.
Hi, I'm Tom Smith, class of 1945 at the schoolhouse. Went to Wyndham High, then to UConn, graduated in 53. Was commissioned in the Army, spent the next 4 years on active duty. White Sands, I had a missile command out there. And for 55 years now, I've worked on the Missile and Space Program. I'm currently working with the 30th Space Wing out of Patrick Air Force Base, installing radar down in the Atlantic and in the Caribbean, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. Sorry, but I have a 3.5-hour drive ahead of me, so I'm going to have to leave, and thank everybody, and hope to see you all again. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joan Hines Etheridge. Originally, I lived at the center, what we call the center over the post office. And my memories down there was when we used to go to the store and get Mrs. Gatchell's ice cream. We had to go up to the center. Remember, Mary? Go up to the center and get Mrs. Gatchell her ice cream. I graduated from the school in '52, went on to Wyndham High School. When I graduated from Wyndham High, I worked at a bank until I met my husband. We got married. We just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary, and we reside in Columbia. I have 2 boys and 2 grandchildren. And I had a real pleasurable day today, and I want to thank everyone.
Green Lathrop Devaney. I worked I went to Natchog School the last year, the 7th grade year, because it was overcrowded. So I actually graduated from Wyndham High twice, because that's where we had our graduation. I went into banking, and I did banking for 32 years. I've married, and I retired and moved to Florida, and that's my permanent address. And I really enjoyed growing up in Andover. The country there's nothing like the country. And I just loved going to that 3-room red schoolhouse. And I remember they made pea soup one time, and none of the kids would eat it. So they sent it all over town afterwards. But I want to thank everybody today for the wonderful time.
But I worked up till I was 85. I married Lawrence Sheehan, and we still live in Andover on Boston Hill Road, just up from the old homestead there, where my sister lives there now when she comes up. And I have 2 children, 2 grandchildren, no great-grandchildren. I guess I don't know what a little red school. And incidentally, I went with Clara Savage Urson. I think you all know her. Some of you know her. She was coming today, but she's not feeling too well. But we went all through from first grade to graduate high school together, and we still go to the high school reunions. So, and I've been married 64 years.
All right. I'm going to ask Ginny to tell us about, in addition to her thoughts and memories at the elementary school, she organized the reunion in 1974. So, I'm supposed to remember that. I don't remember that.
Okay, hi, Ginny Koval Osborne. I won't go through the whole rigmarole. I went to school, graduated, got married in '52, worked in an insurance company in Hartford, both of us. Have 2 children, 4 grandchildren, and 1 great-granddaughter. Well, worked for 17 years at the insurance company, and then my husband retired before me, and then we moved to Florida for his health. So we went down there, and I've been there for 22 years and looking to come back. I'm ready to sell. My husband's been gone for 12 years. While we were up here, I'm trying to think. I don't remember I worked with Lorraine Vignon when we did the last reunion. I don't remember that much about it. But I do remember at the school, us upper grades got to serve the food for the smaller grades. We used to take the trays up to their rooms, first, second, and third graders, I think, and then the 4th, 5th, and 6th up, I think we served, if I remember rightly. But other things I remember, well, you know, my father was town clerk, so got to know all the business in town. I don't know, not really much else, I guess. It was good to see a lot of these people I haven't seen for years, and it was a good day today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jean Stanley Cochran. I live on Long Hill Road in Andover. When I got out of high school in 1945, I went on to Bryant College, and then I worked in insurance for 40 years, part-time kind of thing. And then I went to work for the state for 15 years and retired from the state, and I'm now home doing nothing. I have 3 children and 8 grandchildren, and that's about it. Memories? I remember when we were in grammar school and the boys all had to go down, well, 2 boys every day went down to Mrs. Yeoman's house to bring hot chocolate back for lunch. And that was kind of a treat at that point. Otherwise, I guess there's not much. Thank you.
There's one thing I forgot to say, that my memories of the school.
Stand up. It's just based on it.
Yeah, the memories of the grammar school, what I forgot to say was, I can remember bringing
Catherine gave me a minute, but I'm going to take 2. I love you dearly, sweetheart. Some of the things I have memories of. Does everybody remember when you didn't behave? When you didn't behave, okay? And you had to go out in the cloakroom in the cold weather without your coat on? I don't know if many of you went out there, but I spent quite a bit of time out there. When Mr. Chamberlain came, her and I didn't get along too well. Because I didn't think she was a proper teacher or the principal. But we got along after a while. We several years ago I met her before she died, and I gave her a big hug. Because I said, all the days. But did anybody ever get rulers on their hands? I got a bad hand because I broke a couple of rulers off her one day, and I'd only got 1 slap, I got 5. And I went home and told my father I thought that was child abuse. But it wasn't, because I got more and more and more. I graduated in about 1946, so I think they escorted me out the door. But I had a great time in school, and I have some wonderful, lovely girls around here. I remember them all. That one there, she was a sweetheart. She's grown about an inch. And Art Penny, where's Art Penny? Art Penny was 6'4" when he was in 6th grade. Yeah, he was. And yeah, you don't remember that? And another thing we have problem with, Kenny Hood's birthdays have always been on June 14th until about 2 or 3 years ago he went to June 7th. That's what happens when you get a little older. I bought him a birthday card today because he and I were like brothers. And then I went on to high school, and I played in sports, and I started playing the clarinet at when I was about 8 years old. I played at the town hall down here on the minstrel shows, and Columbia I directed 18 Lions Club shows, and I have the great honor of trying out for a Broadway show in 1951 and got it, but I never went because I went in the Navy. Now how I got that opportunity, they're the Willimantics in Willimantic. They just had another review of this thing. They brought a director in from New York, and I sang Shoeshine Boy, and I did a little tap dancing and did a little dancing, and he told me to come down, and I went to New Haven. It was very interesting because there was 40 or 50 people. And I did the film, being my natural self. And I got the part, but then in the Navy. And I traveled all over the world with the Navy. And then I worked for Stanley Works and CLMP and a company called Lincoln St. Louis Company. I have 5 grandchildren, 2 lovely, great boys. And I got married second time in 62, and I guess we've been married for 45 years. But I want to tell everybody, all of the gentlemen in the crowd, how I got out of doing dishes for 45 years was I did a lousy job, and she said, you're never going to touch another dish in your life. And I did and also I forgot to tell you, I've been a comedian since I was a little kid. But I got a couple more things. Catherine, I got 1 more minute? No. I'm going to take it anyway. I have to introduce you to our celebrities. Irving Stanley. Do you realize that Irving, for, I don't know, 25 or 30 years, had a torture chamber in his office? And he used to advertise, come up, the most gentle guy in the world. But it was torture by the time you walked out. And Catherine, she's been around quite a while. I loved her dearly at one time, but I'm not so sure now, because you're running this like, like a school. And I know that. It's still all right, kid. Eddie Owens hit the greatest home run in the world. We can't find a ball. There's still not a ball field down there. And Eddie went to college, to Trinity, to be a teacher. And guess what he ended up at? Cutting wood. He's the best. So go to Trinity and you'll become a woodcutter. Jean Stanley, the celebrity woman over here, since 12 years old, I've always thought of her as a mother. She looked like a mother at 12, and she still does. And I thought she'd always be a librarian, but she's still a beautiful girl. I got a couple more things. I was going to sing a song, but she told me I can't do this thing. I got a joke for you. I got to tell you a joke. I can't leave it up. Captain, wait a minute. Okay. 90-year-old guy gets a new car, gets a Corvette. He goes down the road one Sunday morning, does 100 miles an hour. The cop pulls him over and says, hey, what'd you do 100 miles an hour for? He said, well, it says right on the dashboard, this car will exceed 100 miles an hour, so I thought it would. He said, well, why didn't you stop when they flashed the lights? He said, I thought, my wife ran away with a trooper 4 months ago, and I thought you were bringing her back. But I leave
That's
it with
it.
that.
That's it.
Can I give you a hug one more minute?
No, I can't.
Did you get that on camera? There you go. Who's next? Can you? Oh, thank you.
Business until 1980, and then went to work for a lighting manufacturer in Shelby, North Carolina. We moved to Shelby, North Carolina in 1970. And I worked there for 25 years as a human resource and retired in 2005. And moved to Texas in 2005. I really don't remember too much about the Little Red Schoolhouse. I remember more about the other elementary school, and I remember a lot of times at lunch recess we would do dancing, put on the records on the record player and dance on our noon recess.
Hi, I'm Susan Peck Nolan, and I don't quite remember what year it was I was at the Little Red School, but I do have a lot of memories, really great dear memories, specifically of Old Betsy, which I think everybody remembers. Also the hot lunches that the mothers made in the winter. And one of the things I'm pretty sure was in the lunch was those cod liver oil pills or whatever were buried. And we tried to fish them out and get rid of them before we were caught. And some other thing I remember, I don't know if anybody else remembers it, but I remember lima beans, which I can't eat to this day. And I just, like I say, have very fond memories of the Little Red School, and I've told many people over the years about it. I worked in Travelers, that's where I retired as a systems analyst, and I've been married 45 years to a wonderful man, which I left in Florida to come up here, and I can't wait to get back to. So I had a wonderful time, and I'm so glad I came.
Janet, you're not going to come? No.
My name is Steve Patrick. I graduated in the class of 1954. On to Windham High School after that and graduated there, and then spent about 7 years at UConn and then on to Michigan State University. So it's had a good time in academics. My adult career, I worked for Hubline Liquor People in operations management, and then ran a risk management area and had an opportunity to make booze and meet a lot of good booze makers all over the world, very frankly. So I had a good career. I've got over 1 million miles on United Airlines alone. So somebody who never thought he'd ever get in an airplane when he was a little kid, I guess I did all right. And memories of the school, I can remember a group of trees down on that side, not far from where the memorial monument is at this time. And I'm sure most of you remember a group called the Down Homers. They were on the radio at 5 o'clock at 4:30 in the morning, and I remember several times having my father get me up and go down there and listen to Down Homers. Well, we had several budding Down Homers in the Andover Grammar School. I remember like Leon Palmer and Owie Lathrop and people like that down playing the guitar, and we were singing along at recess time down there. Some very special memories. I also remember some of the cafeteria things and the fact they force-fed you, so sometimes it wasn't the best food in the world. But I can remember one time being told I had to eat that burnt macaroni and cheese, and I hate macaroni and cheese till this day. And I can remember it only made it. We carried our lunch bags with these plastic plates in the lunch bag, and I can remember making partway up the stairs and leaving all of the macaroni and cheese inside my lunch bag. So I guess that's a couple of memories of Andover Grammar School. I want to thank everybody for what a wonderful job this has been done. It's been very special, and it's been so nice to see so many people and so many great memories of Andover for over the many years. Thank you.
Does anyone else have to leave for an appointment? Gordon, you're right here. And I want you to tell us about Lorraine and you with the HMS Pinafore. Remember the HMS Pinafore? That, how could you forget? And he was going to tell you because Lorraine played the part of a boy because nobody else could sing. Gordon was the only person who could sing.
Oh, here I go. Okay, I'm Gordon McDonald. Was in class of 47, and I became an artist and at one time worked for Pratt & Whitney's art department before I retired. And I'm trying to think of this memory of the Pinafore, HMS Pinafore. I was going to say Pirates of Penzance. The HMS Pinafore. It was the measles or the chicken pox or something. About a week before the play was supposed to go off, and I thought it was Guy that played my part on that, like on a week's notice, since I couldn't do it. But I have since been in many other plays with the Wyndham Theater Guild and podium players and so forth. But that was, I think, number one that I didn't make it to. The other thing I wanted to mention was our great baseball field out in back of the school. Ed and Yeomans and myself and Roger and Punky Carlson and so forth would play baseball out there. But being in the class of 47, we got transferred to Natchog. And in Willimantic, everything was blacktop. And there was no big dirt ball fields. And people played indoor basketball since they were in first grade. So I was pretty lousy at basketball and wished they had a big baseball field because that was a lot of fun here. I think my minute's up. Okay, don't forget Connie, too. Connie Parks in the corner.
Oh.
If he's leaving, I have to leave with him.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, right after Nelson.
Right after Nelson.
I could give it away. Hi, I'm Nelson Warner, and I've lived here all of my life so far. I'm the class of, I guess you'd call it 49? No, 47. High school class of 59. And I can remember my friend Kendall Brown, departed now, and I taking off with a nickel in our pockets during recess to go down there to the store and coming back real late and getting into a fair amount of trouble for that. And even more trouble when I got home. Somehow the word managed to travel. It sure is nice to see a lot of people that I haven't seen, and it's been a very enjoyable time. Thank you very much.
I can't do it all in a minute, so I'll just say that 53 was my class in grade school, 57 at Wyndham High. I lived in this area for about 10 years and then did a little traveling, which ended me up in Alaska, where I've been for 30 years. Worked on the pipeline there, where there weren't very many men and I still have my husband. I think he's outside for 30-some years. Third husband, by the way. Yeah. And my memory of the grade school is somebody else mentioned the pea soup. I said something, I was in first grade, and I said something very unkind about the cooks and the pea soup. And I had to go to the big room, where my brother was in 8th grade, and I had to sit there in front of them all and eat the soup. So.
Hi, Ed Yeomans. Been in Andover basically all my life. Went to Wyndham, then Trinity and Hartford, and finally got a graduate degree from San Diego State in California, so I did move away for 2 years to go out there. Also worked for my uncle in Upper New York State. But I spent 32 years as a math teacher, first at Ram High School and the last 24 years at Rockville High. Only thing I can remember about this cafeteria stuff, I was always gagging on a prune whip, but I couldn't figure out why they always made this prune whip. But I'm glad to see that I'm not alone in what we thought of the cafeteria food. Thank you all for coming.
What about the school bus? Anybody want to talk about the school bus?
I'm Bertha Hutchinson Farron, and I've lived in Andover for a long time. I started here, and I graduated in this class in 1944, and 48 from Windham High School. I got married in 1950 and lived in Manchester. My husband's a barber, retired now, and I have 3 kids. Bobby lives in Andover, Johnny's in Manchester, and Wendy's down in Bristol, and she works for a dental association. But I have one great grandson, and he just turned 20, and he goes to Babson College, and he's on the dean's list there, and I'm real proud of him. So they all keep me busy, running their errands and whatnot. But I have to tell you some of the things about my folks. I'm sitting here, and all I can remember of this room is the Young at Heart. We're having a Halloween party down here. Well, my mother was a great run for dressing up and cutting up and having a good time. So she did. She got all dressed up. She came down. She went up in the ceiling roof up there before the rest of them came for their Halloween party. And she's up there hooting and hollering and having a gay old time. But she was willing to do lots of things, and I learned a lot from her. And she was in all kinds of organizations here, and even now people remember her. And my dad, and he drove the school bus. He worked on the highways during the winter, and my mother cooked homemade donuts, and everyone in town had homemade donuts. Ask anyone. And my grandson, my father and him built a kite one time. He was just a younger kid, and they went down on one of Savage's lots to fly the kite. Well, that was okay, but the next day I got a call from school that Johnny had a horrible stomachache, and I better get him to the doctors. Well, I went down. He was supposed to be helping me clean the barber shop. But we went to the doctors. Come to find out, he'd been down on the lot with my father, and he ate too many donuts, hot donuts, and he had a stomachache. But to this day, he'd still eat the donut if Ma was around to make him for him. And my father was on the fire department and just had a great Andover life. And I always like to come back and see the people that I know here. But one thing funny happened in school. We had Miss Goodrow in first grade, and we used to have to sing 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indians, you know, the whole bit, and we were little kids. Then we got up into the bigger grades, and we put on programs down to the town hall. And one of them was Tom Sawyer, so they were picking out people for different parts, and nobody would volunteer for the colored boy, Jim. So my cousin Kyler stands up and says, Bert'll do it, she'll be Jim, so I was the colored boy and Tom Sawyer. But we had a lot of fun down to the town hall. And if we went down to practice in the winter, Alan Lathrop was supposed to build a fire, you know. Well, sometimes he'd forget, you know, he'd walk down, but he wouldn't build a fire. Then we used to play capture the flag behind the stall over here in Phelps's lot there, you know. And they told us that we could play up there and have our capture the flag there, but you had to come back when the bell rang. Well, they'd ring the bell and we'd pretend we didn't hear it, and we'd be playing capture the flag a little bit longer than we should have. But we had a great time in grammar school, and we had good teachers, Mr. Reiner, Miss Litwin, Miss Goodrow, Miss Kirsten. We used to give her a hard time. She'd turn around to write at the board, and the boys would throw spitballs at the board. Or she'd stand on the heater, you know, it'd be cold in the winter. And she'd be standing on the heater, and the rest of us would be freezing, you know. But she had the heat going because Alton built a fire then when he was supposed to. But like I say, I like Andover. I like coming back. I like to see the people I know. And like I say, I still got one kid living here and the other one in Manchester. And we had a great day today, and I thank everybody for giving us a good time.
I had both a brother and a husband in that class, and they didn't just give Miss Kirsten a hard time. They drove her to a nervous breakdown, and she had to leave. Russ.
My name is Russ Gallipo, and my parents moved to Andover Lake. They bought a house in 1942, so I came here in the 4th grade. I graduated from the elementary school and went on to Windham High, where I graduated in 1950. And then right after that, the U.S. Army thought I'd be great for Korea. So I went to Korea. After coming home, I went to UConn and got my degree in 1957. I married a Willimantic girl. She was number 13 in her family, so I had instant in-laws all over the place. We had 6 children. I was deputy controller for the town of Manchester, went to Bristol, Connecticut as a controller, and in 1973, Hartford National hired me to run their municipal department. We had 6 children. 5 of them are still alive, 3 in Bristol and 2 in Maryland. And one fond memory I have of the school, back in the 40s, they used to have victory drives, and they taught the kids to save money. We used to buy stamps, and when you saved just enough stamps, you got a war bond. Well, because we did so well, and I don't know how that little 3-room schoolhouse could do that well, but the Army sent a Jeep, and so we all got a ride in the Jeep. I remember the guys loved it. I don't know if the girls liked it, but that was a highlight. That was around 1944. And that's about it.
I'm John, well, right here. I'm John Phelps, and I was born in the house right at the end of this road, and have lived in Andover all my life. I went to the Andover Elementary School even before I was old enough, because my mother would let me go down and sit with the kids and eat lunch with my lunch, because I guess I got into the school one time and got somebody's lunch. And I guess they decided it would better that they'd let me eat with all the kids. I remember 2 things anyway, but one thing was in Miss Bradley's room, which was 3, 4, and 5, I think. I always had to sit in the front row, and every once in a while she'd tap me if I got a little too boisterous. She'd hit me with a ruler, and it hurt. And that's the way she got me to behave myself, I guess. But my mother cooked beans for the program, and cocoa, and they'd come to the house and pick up everything. And when I got in school, I wasn't allowed to have any of the cocoa or the beans, because I could go right across the street and have my lunch. And that's no kidding. And so the other thing I remember is that if you had to go out to the bathroom, if you put your finger up once, that was for one thing, and 2 was for something else. And if you put your fingers up too, you could stay out longer. So I always put 2 fingers up. And but that was one of the things that I thought. But I got through. I graduated in 1933, and went to Windham High School, where about the first day or so I met this nice young girl that turned out to be my wife. And so I went from there to the University of Connecticut, and I didn't do too well. I had numerous side issues that I had to take care of at the school. I played soccer and so on. But anyway, then they asked me to leave. And so I went to Morse Business College, where I played on all teams, the baseball team, the soccer team, and the basketball team. But I could only play on the second string on the basketball.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Irv Stanley. I just wanted to say it's been a great pleasure to have so many people come to this, and it's been very satisfying for all of us on the committee. Just going back, my first memories of Andover in a lot of ways were riding in the school bus with my dad. And some of you people probably went down to Windham High School with Howard Stanley. I don't know. But I used to ride down, and I used to be fascinated by the fact that there were tons of school buses lined up down there, and the guys would stay all day and just hang out. And then when it was time, time to pick the students up after school at Windham, then we'd all come back home. I remember, and I can be corrected about this, but I remember someone saying that at one time there were 22 towns that went to Windham. Okay, just real quick back to where I've been and so forth. I graduated from the elementary school in the first class with Myron and Bev and Joe Armstrong and Frank Lemire and Fred Peck and Stoll Kessler and who did I leave off? Bev Hines. We were the first class to graduate, and we went up there with basically with Doris Chamberlain, and I still remember the days when Doris was slapping wrists with the rulers and so forth. Back here in this school, one of my memories is that sitting around that first day in school with Miss Bowman, and we had these little miniature chairs, and we're all sitting around, and I think it was you, Myron, that was saying, Miss Bowman? And I still remember that. And the interesting thing is, turning ahead now, Gladys Bowman became a patient later on of mine up in my office in Mansfield. My background went from graduating here, graduating at Windham, went through UConn, didn't know really what I wanted to do with my life, ended up in the telephone system, and became very real about everything when I got married, and decided to go to dental school, and then I retired 4 years ago from dental school. Some other memories I have of the grade school, I remember the Halloweens. I mean, you come down to this place and all the windows would be totally soaped. I remember the year the flagpole was bent over totally, flattened right out. I remember Halloween over at the conference house at the church, and all of us playing around down in the cemetery, and Owie Lathrop pulling a gravestone onto him, and several of us quickly lifted it right off. I don't know how we ever did it, but he was screaming, and apparently he was okay afterward, but he pulled this thing over on him. What else can I say? I guess that's about it.
Alan, you're up after you.
Before I start on myself, I think there's one thing we should do is I listen to everybody here. I'm the only person that's gone to the School of Hard Knocks and hasn't graduated yet. I think we should all give the teachers that gave us an education that started us on our way a round of applause, regardless of the year you went. They certainly deserve it. They could take this bunch and educate us. By God, they were pretty good. My name is Ken Hilliard. I live down on Merritt Road. I graduated from the high school. I'm from the grammar school in '46, high school in 1950. I went on to work. I went in the service. I was in the Air Force for 4 years, and then I went on another 16 years in the reserves. And I was on flying status for 15 of those and managed to fly all over the East Coast, Greenland, Europe, and so forth. So it's kind of, thank you again for your tax dollars because I enjoyed them very much. I went to work for Pittsburgh Plate Glass Company. I was very fortunate to get work with a Fortune 500 company. And I was with them for around 10 years. And then I went into the architectural aluminum business. And I traveled around the Northeast for companies out of Michigan and Texas. And that's about the way I wound up my career, traveling. And I have been working lately in Elmira, New York for a couple of my customers that I had for around 30 years in my travels. My experience with the school up here, I think I broke Kenny Erickson's arm one time sliding. Well, I just wanted to make sure because I didn't want to miss. And Catherine, I got number 2, please.
Okay, there's a storm coming, so come on out. There's a storm coming. Those of you who haven't told us about yourself. No, Alton, just a minute.
Something I said? My name is Noreen O'Brien Steele. I was in the class of 1954, so I spent 2 years in the Red Schoolhouse. First, I'll tell you about my memories there. One is, and I'm going to name the name, it was Editha Birmingham who was the cook. And she, according to my mother, I didn't know then, but she used government surplus stuff. And so she made this mixture, which is why people don't like macaroni and cheese, because she added peanut butter to it. And I could never stand it, but as Stephen Patrick said, we had to eat everything. So I took the macaroni and peanut butter and cheese mixture and I pasted it underneath my dish, which was glass. And then I put it in the paper bag. And then I went home and I got on the bus. And when I got off the bus, or started to get off the bus, all of the dishes crashed through the paper bag and broke all over the bus. So that's the story about the bus and about the lunch. Also, I remember a couple of things about first grade. One is that I got to sit next to Earlene Gilson, who's sitting back there. And while we were supposed to be taking naps, which I never wanted to take, I would pull her hair. Secondly, Joan Mortlock, who's sitting back there, used to always wear a nice clean dress, and I always wished I was her because mine always got dirty. And I remember Sandra sitting on the rock, and we invite her over to play. So those are the things I remember about first grade. After I left Andover and went to Windham High School, I went to Boston University, where I met my husband. When I first left college, I taught, and I actually taught with my first grade teacher, Miss Bowman. So she was the teacher, yes. We both taught first grade in Columbia. Then when I had children, I stopped teaching. I went back to school, and I spent most of my career with United Technologies, working in information services. I'm retired now. I have 2 children, 2 grandchildren. My husband and I spend our time biking and hiking and scuba diving. That's it.
I'm Alton Lathrop, and we lived right close here, so we weren't blessed by the lunch program. We used to walk home for dinner.
Lucky.
Yeah, but I can remember some of the teachers, Josephine Litwood and Hyman Reiner, and I can remember Bill Merritt saying if he had teachers like Hyman Reiner, he'd have been a lot better student through high school and stuff. And I graduated in '43 from the Red Schoolhouse, and then was drafted in 1950, went to northern Japan, Korea, came back, and I guess a lot of you remember Fran Frederick, and he says, you need a job? He says, there's an opening down at Columbia Garage, and I stayed there for 30-some years, and retired. Retired in 1979, right after the blizzard of '78, and I said, that was enough. Okay, thank you.
My name is Don Smith. Graduated in '49, went to Windham, went to UConn, went to University of Hartford, Started out at Cuno Engineering, no, Spencer Turbine. That's how good my memory is. Went to Cuno Engineering, then went to Pratt & Whitney in engineering. Went into a number of different places in Pratt & Whitney. Spent 32 years there. Ended up as a senior buyer in purchasing, and mostly did technical engineering work for Pratt. I can remember a number of things. One, I can remember Mrs. Bowman wanted to keep me back because I couldn't see the blackboard. I needed glasses even at that time. And so I didn't think too much of Miss Bowman, but Miss Adams, now that was different. There was a nice teacher. You couldn't beat her, and Mrs. Chamberlain was all right. I never got hit with a ruler, but she used to make me write essays for talking. And I had to write first 500 words, then 1,000 words, then 1,500 words on George Washington. You try writing about George Washington, 1,500 words. And then there was a time Fred Peck did something bad, and she said, Fred, you like to fight? Come on down. We're going to go down cellar. We're going to put on boxing gloves, and we're going to fight. And Freddie came up, and she was red-faced, and Freddie was red-faced. And I said, Freddie, what in the world happened? He said, she couldn't catch me. So I thought, Freddie, I says, that was pretty smart. He says, I just kept on running around that boiler, and she never got me. Got kicked off the school bus once. I think Joe Armstrong threw a popsicle stick at me. I don't know, but Ray Goodale kicked me off the bus. He says, don't come back till you see the school board. And I says, oh boy, my father was on the school board, so it wasn't too rough. But I says, well, this is going to be just another long time of hitchhiking to Windham High School, and that's what I did. Every day and every night I hitchhiked back, same way, till Ray let me back on the bus, bless his soul. But I can remember a number of problems at the school, and I tell you, Mrs. Chamberlain was able to get over them all, but she had Buzzy Bazzola. Oh my gosh, the things he did, I couldn't even say them here. I couldn't believe the stuff he did. And Punky Carlson, he used to take erasers, throw them up onto the light. When Mrs. Adams was out of the room, they would start to burn and stink. And finally she'd say, go out to recess. This place is terrible. And he'd set the clock. She'd go out of the room for something. He'd set the clock up, and we get out early, and everybody else would still be there. And Mrs. Chamberlain must have said, what in the world is the matter with that woman? She's let him out again 10, 15 minutes early. It was wonderful. It was really an education. Thanks.
I'm Earlene Hubner, a class of 54, graduated Ram 58, moved to Michigan in 65. I have 3 children, 5 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild, and I have just been certified to teach painting. And I remember the cod liver oil pills. Ernie Reed used to smash them on the floor, and we smelled those for.
Well, fortunately, most people have covered all the things that I remember, all of the things relative to World War II, the hikes up to the Taylors and the McCarrolls for the air raid drills, and the dark curtains, and bringing cans in and flattening them out, and going out at night and looking for milkweed for life jackets, and then we would all bring that in, and this was all for the war effort. The other interesting thing that some of you may not have been aware of, even though you went to that school, is down in the corner here is where my grandmother lived, and she had what they called then an artesian well, actually with an electric pump, and she supplied the water for her house, the next 2 houses, the firehouse here, and the school. and the school was the high point on the water system. And very often her pump would die. And when that would happen, they had a spring way up in the woods behind Mrs. Miller's house on Cider Mill that was gravity feed. And so in the morning, I'd always walk by the drinking fountain in the hall. We had one drinking fountain in the hall, and if the water was just dribbling out of the drinking fountain, I knew the pump had died, and either my father or Catherine's father would be down there in a while to work on it. The other interesting thing you might not know is the bell that we had up there came from the railroad down here, and my father told me what the story was, but I don't remember. Either a steam locomotive was parked here and it exploded, or there were two steam locomotives that ran into each other and both exploded. But in any event, the bell came from a locomotive that I don't know if my father was part of it, but somebody stole it and brought it up and put it in the school. And when we went up to the new school, the bell fortunately went up to the new school, and it's still in the belfry up there. And when we first moved up to the new school, we had an electric bell system, which they only used for about 3 months, and then we went back to using the old bell. I'm sure most of you remember that. And today, I don't know if they're still using it or not. I graduated in '51. After enduring 4 years of Mrs. Chamberlain. I was in the lucky class that had her for 4 years. I had her in the 5th grade up here, and then 3 more wonderful years up at the new school. And graduated from Windham in '55. Went to the University of Hartford and graduated in '61. And my wife and I moved to Central New York, where I worked for General Electric for 10 years, and then for a machine tool company up there for 29 years. At that point, we moved back to Connecticut and bought Mrs. Moe's house up on Bunker Hill. And I continued to do some work on the side, and then quit doing that altogether and did nothing for 2 years, and then took up driving a school bus. And that I don't recommend that to anybody. But anyway, that's pretty much been our history. We have 5 kids and 8 grandchildren. Yeah.
One just graduated from Air Force Academy.
Yes, one grandchild has graduated from the Air Force Academy in Colorado and is learning how to fly a C-5A right now.
I'm Louise Palmer Walton, and I went to the old school just 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. And my favorite thing was getting in the 2 little lines, walking to the library with Miss Hyatt, with her bracelets and her pretty smock, and that's my favorite memory. And I'm busy in the kitchen. Thank you.
We still, yes. I was hoping to get away scot-free. And you were too.
I'm Judy Smith Howe, and I was in the class of '54, but I left right after 7th grade, so I didn't graduate. My funny memories have been kind of absorbed by everybody else, except that John had a very good memory about the number 1 and the number 2, but you see, he didn't have Miss Bowman, who had kind of digressed to a wait-and-see attitude. And so my memory, one of my memories is of somebody's woolies drying on that great big radiator. So anyway, it was packed really full of great memories, and Connie Parks and I hung out a lot. We got into trouble a lot. No, we tried to get into trouble together, but I was the one that wound up being caught. So I did get a few visits to Miss Chamberlain's room, and I was probably the only little first grade girl that got the ruler, but I didn't get away scot-free because my brothers were sitting there dying to get home and tell my parents. So that's pretty much my memory. I now do antique dealing and interior design, and I'm tapering off because I want to retire. So that's it.
And I, for years, would be very proud to say I attended Andover Elementary School.
What have you been doing all these years? Some very fine things.
Yeah, I went to Wyndham, had a wonderful education there. Had wanted to go to college. Nathan Gatchell was spearheading me, and even though my father was a graduate of Connecticut Agricultural School, he didn't seem to lean toward my getting off to college, so it didn't work out. I raised 5 children and had a good helpmate. Steve worked very hard, first around for my father. He did a lot of the repair work on the machinery. Then he got a job in Hartford and worked as a machinist all of those years. And when the twins were 3rd grade, I had a chance to work at Ram in the kitchen. So I turned my talents to being a kitchen helper and cook. And food was always a concern of mine. And
Coming from a dairy farm.
yeah,
And you're a writer, a philosopher.
yes, I guess I started writing, always writing letters, notes. Then I got the job as head cook at Andover School when they were serving hot meals for 300 kids. That was a labor of love. I'm not sure how long I did that. Then I got into craft work and started doing, I found an inner feeling of wanting to create, produce. Taught some classes on cut and pierced lampshades. That kept me at home for a number of years. I guess I worked at Andover 10 years altogether. And always busy, either church or women's group.
You've been good news for so many women in town, in the state, and all around.
I like to think I've contributed in any way I could. Not what I've done, but what I like to do and hope it helps someone coming along the way.
Have you kept in touch with anyone from the school or shared memories of it with them?
just Eleanor Koval Sheehan. And when we get together, we always have memories. Franny Frederick Billings.
Well, thank you, Clara.